TheJamies.net.
The PhilaPort Cruise Terminal is located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just south of the Philadelphia International Airport. We sailed out of the port aboard the Norwegian Jewel in June 2026. At that time, the cruise terminal was still under construction, so we had to complete our check-in process at the Clarion Hotel located in nearby Essington. In this video, we'll provide a complete overview of our embarkation experience, including parking and completing check-in at the Clarion Hotel, riding the bus to the dock, and boarding our ship. We'll also share our disembarkation experience from the ship back to the hotel. Just a quick note that if you enjoy this video, please give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. It really helps our channel. And consider subscribing so you get alerted when we add new videos. We kicked off our embarkation day morning with a quick 30-minute Griswold-style tour of many of the historical sites in downtown Philadelphia. After completing the short tour, we followed I-95 to the Clarion Hotel in Essington. When we arrived at the hotel just before 12:30 in the afternoon, there was already a good line of cars approaching from both directions. Police officers were on site directing traffic from both directions, which helped keep things moving smoothly. As we continued toward the parking lot, we noticed several guests being dropped off by family, friends, and ride shares near the parking entrance. Since buses were lined up in front of the hotel to provide transportation to the dock, there really wasn't any way to drop off closer. In the weeks before our cruise, we tried to prepay for parking at the Clarion Hotel several times. Despite using the instructions and phone number Norwegian Cruise Line emailed to us, we were never able to get through. As a result, we prepaid online for parking at the Park and Jet lot, located immediately adjacent to the hotel, expecting we would need to walk our luggage from the parking lot to the hotel. As we continued driving, we soon found ourselves entering a large parking lot that was being used for both the Clarion Hotel and Park and Jet airport parking. When we reached the attendant booth, we showed our parking receipt, and the attendant asked if we were going to the airport or the cruise. The attendant then gave us an NCL parking permit and directed us to follow the other cruise passengers to the luggage drop-off on the back side of the hotel. The luggage drop-off area had 3 lanes for vehicles and several porters available to assist with bags. The process moved efficiently, and we were soon on our way to find a parking space in the large, gated lot. From our parking space, it was about a 5-minute walk to the check-in entrance at the back of the hotel. It's worth pointing out that when we first pulled up to the luggage drop-off area, the check-in line extended well outside the hotel. However, by the time we parked and walked back to the area, no more than 10 minutes later, it was completely gone. The initial line we saw seemed to be a temporary backup that resolved quickly. Inside the hotel, we joined a relatively short line and completed the check-in process in about 10 minutes. As part of check-in, we were given a bus number, which corresponded to a specific ballroom waiting area within the hotel. There was signage posted throughout the hotel to help us find our way. We were assigned to the Washington Ballroom, which was the waiting area for buses 49, 50, and 51. Restrooms were available just outside the ballroom entrance, and a water station was set up inside. Even with 3 buses worth of guests assigned to the same space, there were plenty of seats available for everyone. About 20 minutes after we sat down, our bus number was called. We lined up and boarded the bus parked in front of the hotel. Storage was available underneath the bus for larger carry-on items, and there was plenty of seating on the bus for everyone assigned. We left the hotel about 10 minutes after boarding the bus, or roughly an hour after we had first arrived for parking. The bus ride from the Clarion Hotel to the dock took about 20 minutes and was fairly uneventful. Other than passing by one of the airport's main runways, there wasn't much to see until we arrived at the dock and saw the cruise terminal building still under construction. After stepping off the bus, we walked with our carry-on luggage toward the security checkpoint. Along the way, we passed temporary restrooms, which included wheelchair-accessible options. When we entered the security checkpoint tent, there were even fewer people in line than there had been for the check-in process, and we passed through without any wait. The security checkpoint was located at the western end of the cruise port area, which is important to note because the bus dropped us off closer to the eastern end of the area. Leaving the security checkpoint tent, we had to backtrack almost all the way to the eastern end of the cruise port area to enter the cruise terminal building. Thankfully, there weren't any long lines or long waits outside for our embarkation, so the walk itself was pretty straightforward. However, it's important to be prepared for a long walk, particularly for guests with mobility challenges or in case of inclement weather. Along the way, there were a few chairs located at the corner of the new cruise terminal building for anybody needing a quick break. And there were also multiple water stations available. Inside the terminal, it was clear there was still a significant amount of work remaining before it would be ready to fully support the check-in process. The outer structure was starting to take shape, but the interior was still very much a work in progress. It only took a few minutes to walk through the terminal building and reach the gangway. A dock worker was managing the flow of guests to the gangway to keep the area clear for supply trucks. We completed our embarkation and boarded the Norwegian Jewel a little after 2 p.m., just over an hour and a half after we had first arrived at the Clarion Hotel. Midway through our cruise, we received a letter from the ship explaining what to expect for disembarkation. According to the letter, guests who parked at the Clarion Hotel would be transported back to the hotel. All other guests would be taken by complimentary bus to the nearby Philadelphia International Airport, since ride shares, taxis, and other transportation were not available from the pier. Later, we kicked off the disembarkation process when we picked up an 8 a.m. luggage tag. On the morning we got off the ship, we ate breakfast, then listened for our luggage tag to be called. When our tags were called, we made our way to Deck 5 Forward to join the disembarkation line. It took us about 20 minutes of slow, constant walking to reach the midship gangway and officially leave the ship. From there, we walked back through the unfinished terminal building and continued to the luggage tent, which was the same tent that served as the security checkpoint during our embarkation. Once again, there were water stations and a handful of chairs along the walk. It's worth pointing out that there really wasn't a convenient place to wait for your luggage if you arrived before your luggage tags were called, so following NCL's process seemed to be the best approach. After picking up our bags, we made our way to the bus area, where there were two separate lines, one for guests heading back to the Clarion Hotel and one for guests heading to the airport. We joined the line for the hotel and soon had our luggage loaded onto the bus. About 10 minutes after leaving the ship, we were on our way back to the hotel, and the return bus ride took about 15 to 20 minutes. When we arrived at the Clarion Hotel, we waited to retrieve our bags from the bus, then walked across the parking lot to our vehicle. From the time our luggage tag was called until we reached our vehicle was about 1 full hour. It's important to keep in mind that the hotel's parking lot and the adjacent lot are both quite old and filled with crumbled asphalt, so be prepared for a bumpy walk when rolling your luggage. Using the Clarion Hotel for check-in is clearly only a temporary solution until the PhilaPort Cruise Terminal is completed. That caused both our embarkation and disembarkation processes to take a bit more time than others we've experienced over the years. However, both processes were also some of the smoothest we've been through, which was surprising for us. Given the circumstances, our overall experience was very reasonable, so we wouldn't hesitate to cruise out of Philadelphia again.